I'm Salad, Mint Salad, and I saw Skyfall. It is directed by Sam Mendes, written by John Logan, Neil Purvis, and Robert Wade. If you haven't seen this movie, I will spoil it for you. This movie starts and we're following James Bond and also Moneypenny, but she's not revealed to be Moneypenny until the very end of the movie. They're going after a guy who has stolen a hard drive full of a bunch of very important security stuff. Moneypenny is supposed to shoot the guy, but they're on top of a train fighting. M's like, just shoot him. And Moneypenny be like, bro, but just Bond. What if I hit Bond? M's like, just do it. And then she does it and hits Bond and he falls off the side of the train and it's presumed that he's dead. RIP. We also got M is in serious trouble. There's a security breach. It goes very public. And also an explosion happens at the MI6 headquarters. M's job is on the line. The Prime Minister is very sus, very not happy with M, and looking for her job, looking for her head. Of course, Bond is having fun time, drinking alcohol, having a scorpion on his hand while he drinks alcohol very fast. I guess that's a game. And he sees some news. He's like, all right, I guess I'm gonna go back to M. And he goes back to M, and M's like, bro, I'm glad you're here because the 007s, they're trying to take down the program. Not to mention that there's not a lot of 007s left. Immediately, I like the pacing of this movie because I feel like I can just hold all of this information that is being delivered to me. The pacing is also set just more evenly, more slow, but it's not slow and dragging, it's slow necessary. It's necessary in order for me to soak up the information. Also, some of the slowness of the scenes and the quietness of some of the dialogue scenes add for more tension in between the loud action scenes. And before I forget, I gotta say that Skyfall song, I love it. I actually heard of it before I watched Skyfall. I've heard of it probably when it first came out, 2012. Yeah, Adele was really big back then. And I still like Adele. I like her singing voice. She is by far top 3 best Bond theme songs. I think my list for right now has to be Live and Let Die, then Skyfall, then Diamonds Are Forever, Quantum of Solace, and then I'm gonna have a video where I rank all of the James Bond songs, so don't you worry, you'll be able to know what my true feelings are on all of the songs at a later date. I like how M, even though that Bond doesn't pass any exam, no physical exam, no medical exam, no mental exam, none of that. He doesn't pass any of it. M still recruits him on. I'm starting to think that M has some sort of feelings, not romantic, but definitely protective, motherly instinct feelings towards James Bond, and it's even mentioned so as such that they joke about M being the mother. Turns out the guy who did the hacking, he's inside, he's known to M, and it turns out that they hate M. The person who did the hacking hates M. We also got Big Brain Q over here. He looks like a modern nerd. Not like how Q was kind of like a fat old dude. This guy looks like he's a young, svelte, very nerdy, very stays inside all the time kind of guy. And his hair also reflects it. His hair is very shaggy, is probably the correct word for it. I like how this Q looks. I don't know, I just like him, and I like his personality, and I like how snappy he is in comparison to the last Q, who's not as snappy. They still have the same complaints like, hey James Bond, can you please bring this car back in one piece? And James Bond never does. So it makes me wonder, how much money are they spending for these cars for James Bond to wreck? That's a waste of taxpayer dollars if I've ever heard of it. Maybe that's why the people want to get rid of this program. They're like, oh, but espionage is not modern. I'm like, actually, all the threats are even more in the shadows than before. Just because you have everything digital doesn't mean that human nature has suddenly gone away. No, human nature has evolved to use these tools, these advanced tools, in order to deceive you more. But everybody, even while they're in the meeting with M, talking about how she should be fired and why she should have the program still exist because they're thinking about terminating the 00 program. She's like, yeah, everything's in the shadows. And I'm like, yeah, everything's in the shadows. It's so dumb to think you don't need an espionage right now. You actually need it more now. Oh, just because it's digital, you can still be able to track people digitally. You just gotta have somebody who's just as qualified digitally as the other side is. And it looks like Q is almost there. He's definitely doing his best, but there is this one mistake that allows it so the outside guy, who was not at all escaped, he was captured. They identified who it was. It was somebody that M had previously had a relationship with in the agent sense, and he has a really big grudge against her because she gave him up for 6 agents. And honestly, I think it's a fair trade for her to give him up. I can see why he views her as an enemy, but she was just doing what she thought was the right thing to do. I like the black and whiteness that is exhibited in this movie versus the other James Bond movies I feel are a little bit more black and white. This one is like more in the grays. We got M's perspective. She was just trying to recover 6 agents in return for 1 agent, and that 1 agent sees her as the bad guy, but she doesn't see herself as the bad guy. She sees herself as having done what she did. She sees herself as having done what was the most necessary thing possible. And I like her mantra, regret is not professional. So anyway, that guy's escaped, so now it's up to Bond to go find that guy once again. I also like the power scaling because it seems like the big bad honcho, he wanted them to go underneath the ground so he can get more of an access to everything intimate within M16. Or MI6 rather, so he's able to escape, and then, you know, James Bond goes after him, and it's a fun chase that he does while James Bond is going after this guy. This guy is going after M, who's at the meeting, and the meeting is ended when the guy opens the door and just starts shooting, pop, 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 and a bunch of people jump in front of the bullets for M, and it's a pretty fun scene. They get M out of there, and then they leave a electronic trail that only this guy would be able to pick up, and then that guy follows it, and then it's up to Bond and M to lead this guy here. And I like this guy's entrance. He's like on a helicopter and he has like a boombox playing some music underneath it as he helicopters to the place that they're hiding out in. We also learn more about James Bond's family. He's an orphan. Of course he is. I didn't think about his family before so, but now that I'm thinking about it, it makes complete sense. This bad honcho, he comes up to M is like, hey, you should shoot both of us. And I'm like, why would M do that? And of course he's having hesitation. She's injured. And then M just stands there frozen while James Bond throws a knife at the guy's back, and then he dies, and then M dies, and then they have a funeral, and it's so sad. And then it's revealed that this is actually Eve Moneypenny is the chick instead of the other Moneypenny. I'm like, okay, cool, I'm down. I'm alright. I'm interested in this. Honestly, Daniel Craig just feels like an action movie star more so than a James Bond to me. Although he kind of has the same feel to him. He has a lot more rebelliousness than the previous James Bonds, that's for sure. Although it seems like in more and more modern movies, starting from the 60s through like now, starting around the 80s era is when he starts to get a little bit more rebellious, the 90s even more so, and now he's just like flat out just doing whatever he thinks is right and is not necessarily the instructions of the agency. James Bond sleeps with 2 ladies in this film. Quite an upgrade from the one from last movie. And I gotta say, they're adorable. They're also adorable. I especially like the chick. She has the really dark makeup, and he goes up to her and is like, oh, your boss. And she's like, oh, my boss? I'm gonna be now cagey now that you mentioned my boss. Ooh. I liked this movie. I enjoyed Skyfall. I think I enjoyed it a lot more than the previous movies, and I really like the action. You can really see Daniel Craig doing all the action-y, all of the martial artsy. Not to mention that the colors in this are so much more vibrant than the other ones. I feel like with James Bond, with the way that it progresses, you got like really colorful very, very early on in James Bond, and then like towards the middle it's kind of more samey in the color palette, and then more of the modern movies, they're getting more and more and more colorful, because I feel like this movie has to justify Daniel Craig's existence by overcompensating with the cinematography being great and also the colors being great and the action being great. Daniel Craig is not as tall as the other James Bonds by like a few inches, and I don't mind. He still has the same energy, although he looks different. I can't get over how different Daniel Craig looks than the other ones, but he feels like he has the most energy like James Bond, but the rebel meter is flipped up to like a 10 versus the other ones are maybe like a 3 or 4. This one's like a 9 or a 10, and then his oogling over women. Although he's not as upfront about it as the previous films where he's like straight up just being sexually aggressive. He lets the women come to him, but when the women come to him, he's like, alright, I'm here, and I'm here to seduce you, and then, you know, he seduces them. What do you think of Skyfall? I enjoyed Skyfall. I would not want to fall from the sky. Have you fallen from the sky? That doesn't sound like fun, unless it's within a controlled environment like skydiving. That'd be pretty cool. Let me know what you think. I gotta give this movie, it's a solid 7.8 out of 10. If you like this review, watch another one on the platform relax at 20 Ardinos, patreon.com/ASEPresents. 1 movie review per 1 month. Go to Sleep Treat, support the daily grindness, have all the daily movies, and go here. And until next time, in Salad Saw, I'll see you later. My sour croutons and bacon bits. And remember that in order to fall from the sky, you first have to be in the sky to fall from. Adios.